Let me go ahead and officially welcome you to the first ever AI virtual summit on fundraising presented by Petrus Development. I'm Andrew Robinson, owner and president of Petrus, and I will be serving as your host and MC today. So, as we should begin all things, we will start with a word of prayer. So, join me in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Come, Holy Spirit, giver of wisdom and understanding, as we gather to consider the work of your own minds, of our own minds and hands. Open our hearts to discern rightly. Grant us prudence to embrace what is good, courage to question what is not, and humility to keep the human person made in your image at the center of all we do. May the tools we explore today serve your church, honor the dignity of those we are called to serve, and give greater glory to your name. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. All right. Well, for the past 20 years, Petrus has served thousands of Catholic organizations, teaching them how to be better fundraisers so they can have stronger ministries. This is what drives us. So when Catholic parishes, schools, dioceses, and ministries have more money, they can do more ministry, right? And since we were founded in 2005, Petrus has seen those strategies change with the times. We've taught people how to write better appeal letters, lead better crowdfunding campaigns, tell better stories, and on and on. And as the world changes, our methods have changed with it. And that brings us to why we are here today. So I love history, and so when I look back through history, certain inventions have changed everything. The printing press in 1440 revolutionized the production of the written word. The Model T, the first affordable automobile invented in 1908, revolutionized transportation. And the internet in 1983, when Al Gore first invented it, revolutionized how people connected and communicate around the world. And in 2022, the release of ChatGPT revolutionized things again. Much of how that revolution will play out has yet to be seen. Some people have called AI a generational invention, a 1,000-year evolution, whatever it is. It's big, it's powerful, and it's really not understood by many people yet. So my own personal journey with AI and understanding of AI is very new, but probably similar to many of you here today. And it actually started by making silly pictures for my kids at the dinner table with ChatGPT. That's it. I was using chat to make goofy images. My kids love dragons and unicorns and superheroes. So whatever they asked for, I was making it, right? Nothing strategic. But I noticed something about the AI. Every week when I would ask it to do something, it was getting a little bit better. It was sharper. It was more capable of something that it couldn't do the week before. And somewhere in there between the unicorn and the 1,000 unicorns and then the more unicorns, it started to click with me that this technology is not a fad. It's sticking and it's going to be a part of my world and the world my kids grow up in and the work that I do. So what turned my fun time with ChatGPT into a calling was a book that I read. Last year, I read a book called The Empire of AI by Karen Howe. I would definitely recommend it. It's long, but it's a great read. And what stuck with me wasn't the technology. The story of the history of OpenAI and Sam Altman was fascinating, but it was a phrase that I kept seeing the people using these tools, building these tools use over and over again. Race to the bottom. And what they meant was that by that was that the rules, the ethics, the guardrails of AI will continue to loosen as more players get involved and honestly as there's more money to be made. And these are the leaders of the field, right? And that's how they describe the dynamic they're in as a race to the bottom. If the people setting the pace are in a race to the bottom, and there are no Catholic leaders, no nonprofit voices anywhere near the table, then these tools will get built without us and ultimately handed to us to use. And Silicon Valley is going to push technology onto Catholic fundraising, whether or not it fits how we actually work, whether or not it honors a donor as a person, whether or not it serves the mission, not out of malice, but out of momentum and out of money. So that's when I felt something that I can only call a personal call, right? Not to become a technologist. I studied liberal arts. I'm a history major. I like to write stories and books, not code. But that's when I felt that I had to learn enough to understand this. I had to learn enough to engage it, and I had to figure out what role someone like me is supposed to play so that our community isn't just on the receiving end of whatever gets shipped from Silicon Valley. So that's why I'm here today. That's why we're all here today. We're all working it out. We don't have it all figured out. I'm still wary of that race to the bottom pull, but I've become convinced that the worst thing that Catholic leaders can do with AI is to be absent. Curiosity is a form of stewardship. And if we show up, then we get a say in how this serves the people we're called to serve. In his encyclical, Magnifica Humanitas, Pope Leo says that technology is never neutral. But what does he mean by that? I think he means that the printing press, like the car, like the internet, AI has the power to be used how the users choose to use it. Some for bad, but most for good. And I think that most of you, at least I hope most of you, given the choice, would choose to use AI for good, for building churches, for feeding the hungry, for clothing the naked. But before we choose to use it, we have to choose to understand it. And so that's what today's summit is about today. Each of you watching or listening to this is choosing to take a step of understanding. You're probably all in different places as far as how you feel about AI, right? This is a spectrum. Some of us are still using it to make silly pictures for kids. Some are already drafting appeal letters and campaign event schedules. But you are here today to learn more, and that's a choice. I applaud you for that choice. The question we've gathered today is to try to answer not can we use AI? The world is making that decision for us. The question is, how can we, as faithful Catholics, use AI responsibly for good? All right. Well, panelists, are you ready? Okay, good. So let me go ahead and introduce our four panelists. All four of us are members of the Petrus team, and we will be talking through the Catholic response to AI to get started. So I told you a little bit about my journey making goofy pictures for my kids. Those are my kids. I live in College Station, Texas. I'm the owner and president of Petrus Development. I've been in professional fundraising for over 20 years. Makes me feel old every time I say that. But these are my kids. I've got a 4-year-old, a 7-year-old, a 11-year-old, a 16-year-old, a 3-year-old puppy, a 5-year-old bearded dragon, and a 13-week puppy who we just brought home yesterday. So if I'm looking a little sleepy, you can understand why, because we had a puppy sleeping in our room last night. Let me introduce Ren. Ren Hain, next on that list, is our director of marketing at Petrus. Ren has a background in fundraising and helped to build an amazing annual fund program at St. Albert the Great in Michigan, at Michigan Tech University, home of the annual Ice Mass. So if you've ever been looking in like February or March on Twitter or on Facebook or in the news and you've seen the chapel made out of ice, that is where Ren worked for many years, helped to build a strong annual fund program, and led a successful campaign there where they raised, I always get the number wrong, $3.141596 million. So if you don't know why they raised that much money, then you can ask Ren. But Ren is great, handles our marketing, handles a lot of our course development. And when he's not building courses or working with folks on fundraising, Ren, you can almost always find him at his house, on the trails, or in his yard with his kids, where he raises chickens, gardens, and dreams of someday living totally off grid in the wilds of Alaska. I hope I didn't out you as we're working on an AI summit with that. But thanks for being here, Ren. Next is Sarah. Sarah Rose is a senior consultant for Petrus and has worked with countless Catholic nonprofits to build up strong giving programs, engage new donors, and plan for the future. Sarah also worked for a couple of years for a library. So if you ever need book recommendations, you can always ask Sarah. She may have a recommendation or certainly knows where to find it. Sarah lives outside of Austin, Texas, where she and her family stay busy reading, riding, swimming, hiking, and embracing that weird Austin lifestyle they all love. And I can say that as a College Station guy, Austin is weird. But Sarah is not. Thanks for being here, Sarah. Great. And our fourth panelist is Matt. Matt Bond is a senior consultant for Petrus, and as you'll hear more, is the chief architect of Pete, Petrus's AI co-pilot tool. Matt has a background in youth ministry, in real estate, and in fundraising. And Matt led an incredibly successful campaign at St. John Catholic Student Center at Oklahoma State University, where they raised over $27 million in the middle of COVID for a new church and student center. Matt now lives outside of Oklahoma City and has three boys who love to keep him busy camping, hiking, playing sports, and having fun. And one fun fact I'll share about Matt roots for the Oklahoma Thunder, right, Matt? Basketball team. And one of his favorite players he was talking about is Alex Caruso. Great guard, plays for the Oklahoma Thunder. And he's talking about how great Alex Caruso is. And I say, I coached Alex Caruso when he was in sixth grade. And he didn't believe me. And then I pulled up youth basketball for the city. Alex Caruso was on our team, MVP of that team as well, but great guy. And so Matt was thrilled. I think I clicked up a couple of notches in credibility when I told Matt about that. But thanks for being here, Matt. Now, I am going to get started, or we are going to get started now with our Catholic panel on AI, the Catholic response to AI, right? So we're going to start. I told you my personal journey story with AI, and now we're going to share those with everybody else. So, Ren, why don't you get us started? Your AI journey kind of more or less paralleled mine in terms of timeline. Tell us more about your journey with AI.
Yeah, hello everybody. I'm glad to be here. So my journey, like you said, it kind of started with you. I remember one day when ChatGPT first came out, you texted me some examples of things that you had done playing around with it. And one of the things that you did is say, "Hey, just write me a draft of an appeal letter," and it wrote it. And for that for me, seeing that back then was kind of like the first time I saw an iPhone and somebody turned it sideways and the screen turned sideways with it, and we were all like, "Oh my goodness!" Right? Seeing that capability, and then over for the next few years, I didn't really do a whole lot with it. You kind of, you try generating some stuff and it's okay, some text, but then really around Christmas time when some of the newest models came out, it was ChatGPT 5, it was Opus 4.5. They started really finding it to be much more useful, right? It actually could do things, it wouldn't hallucinate as much. And I remember I was working on updating my Christmas card list, and I had a bunch of updates this year. And I said, I don't really want to type these all up by hand, write them out. So I tried taking a picture of all the addresses on the return addresses that I needed to update. And I said, hey, just take these images and give me a spreadsheet with all these. And it just did it like that. And that for me, it was like, oh my goodness. I could see I spent a lot of time in my fundraising development director days taking all of the addresses from the mailings that have been sent back with the NCOA updates and entering those in by hand one at a time into our database for hours at a time, right? When you're sending out thousands of mailings, you're going to get a couple hundred back a lot of the time. And man, seeing that, like, okay, this is a clear example of a way that I could take a job that takes hours, and I could do it in a couple of minutes all of a sudden, right? I remember I used to work a long time ago for a retail chain that had 100 plus stores, and they always were trying to get everybody signed up for the rewards program, right? And you have a form you filled out, and when you go to the corporate offices, they had somebody whose only job was to sit at a computer and type in the information from those reward sign up forms into the computer. And I'm like, man, that's hard for me to find a lot of meaning. Like that's an important job, right? You need that information. All of us need to be growing our databases, and database maintenance is an important task that needs to happen. But it's hard to find a lot of meaning in doing that all day, every day, right? And so being able to use a computer to do that task for me, that frees me up to go and do some of the other actual kind of, I guess, more human elements of the job instead with that time. That's where I started seeing, okay, now this is where AI is actually going to help with my fundraising, help with everything that I do, and free me up to do the really important stuff, take away some of those tedious tasks, especially the ones that I didn't enjoy in the first place.
Mhm. Great. Well, let me ask you a question about that, Ren, because a lot of people this is a big fear of AI, right? Is that AI is going to kick people out of their jobs. So you use an example there of somebody being able to use a prompt to update information. When AI first became prevalent in the workplace, and as it continues to be, were you afraid that AI was going to take the good parts of your work?
Initially, I kind of felt a lot of fear about that. The more that I've done work with AI, the busier I've gotten. It has, right? All of a sudden, it opens up when you can take away some of those tasks. It opens up your ability to do a lot more things that you were said, oh, it'd be great if I could do whatever that thing over there. I don't have time. It's not the top of the list, so I'm going to put it off. Freeing up some time allows you to move into those things, right? I remember when I was toward the end of the time that I was development director at St. Albert the Great, I our development program had grown a lot, and I was the only development staff at the time, and it was very difficult to me for me. It was getting difficult for me to get out and meet donors face to face because I
Mm,
had so much administrative stuff in the office to do all the time. Right, and when I left, they ended up bringing in a full-time communications and database person and a full-time development director to kind of replace me, right? Because there were so many of those tasks that freed up the development director to get out and meet people more, right? But so having a tool that could take away some of those more administrative tasks so that I could be out meeting people would have been a no-brainer at the time, right? This was
mm.
pre-AI, but right. So uh, if you kind of extrapolate that out to today, you could see, okay, maybe AI can replace that more administrative task position and allow just one fundraiser to keep doing all the work. And maybe that frees up salary to move into a more ministry facing position, or maybe it allows you to expand your overall fundraising. Maybe you do, in that example, have two people who are doing really four or five or six people's work with AI tools, allowing them to grow their fundraising and then grow their ministry staff on the other end as a result, right? So it gives you more options when you have tools to take away some of those time consuming tasks.
Great. And Ren, one of the things that I love about you that you always bring to the team, as we're talking about kind of journey of AI, is that you really love to understand and to learn. And so you're always kind of bringing us great articles, great stories, great links. And it seems like you follow a couple of people that are really kind of leaders in knowledge and teaching about AI. Can you just give maybe our audience a couple of the people that you find to be most valuable as everybody is on their own journey of learning? Who have you kind of found to be most helpful in learning at this tool?
Yeah, I think the probably the person that's best known as bringing the AI tech to the average kind of layperson is her name is Allie K. Miller. You'll find her on Twitter. You'll find her on YouTube. She's very good at saying, okay, this is the technology. This is how you apply it to your everyday life for somebody. And she has a big tech background, but she's very good at opening it up for somebody who doesn't have that. Right. I studied engineering in college, but I studied civil engineering, so I can design concrete. I didn't do anything with computers, so it's helpful for me to understand all that. And the other one other kind of resource that I use is called the AI Daily Brief. It's both a podcast and a YouTube video, and that's a little bit more techy, but he's really good at explaining, here's what's happened in the last 24 hours, which is a lot of times the news cycle in AI is that short. It's what are the newest changes in the last 24 hours? Here's how it applies to you as somebody out there working with it in the world.
Great. Yeah, I think that that's super helpful. And again, we're all on this journey, right? You know, you talked about it wasn't but a year ago that we were, kind of exploring chat, right? We had our first AI hackathon last fall, which was four of us. Well, replaced Sarah with Josh, our intern, but where we got together and we're just like, what can we even do with AI, right? So learning how to what this is capable of, learning how to use it, and now shifting over into learning how to use it responsibly, I think is really an important thing that we all continue to do, and you do that really well. So thanks.
Thanks. It's always changing, so a job in and of itself to keep up with what's going on. When you say that last fall we did a hackathon, and that feels like 10 years ago. Things have changed so much, and the capabilities are so much stronger just in those last 9, 10 months. So.
Great. Well, thanks for sharing your journey. Sarah, tell us about your journey with AI. How did you come to be aware of this technology, and where are you kind of sitting at today?
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. So similar to you, kind of, Andrew, I started with ChatGPT at our dinner table. If you have young kids, you can appreciate this of tell me another riddle, tell me another riddle, another one, another one. So, asking ChatGPT, tell me a riddle that's for an 8-year-old. And I actually remember trying to make our 8-year-old a panda themed birthday invite.
Mm.
And this is, I don't know, a little over a year ago at this point, and what came back was not wonderful.
There's like a koala bear in there
Quite
somewhere. Like,
alarming.
what's going on here?
But yeah, I mean, nothing technical, just playing around with it. After playing around with it enough with my family, with things like what's a good movie to watch next, or things like that, I started asking it questions for my work. Help me rewrite this sentence, or basically using it as a thesaurus. Like, what's a better way to say X, Y, and Z? which led to, other questions like what resources exist for this thing? What other things should I be asking about X, Y, and Z? But I've never read how-to guides on AI and how to use it. I am not a technical person. I have a degree in communications and I've done fundraising for my entire career. I still don't really understand how all AI works underneath the hood, but I like to think I know how to ask a good question, and that seems to take me far enough.
I think that's a really good insight, right? So a lot of the people, probably a lot of the people on this call here today are like, "Hey, I got into ministry. I don't know technology." But you hit on a good point there, right? The ability to be curious and the ability to ask good questions and then ask good follow-up questions, I think in my mind is 100 times, 1,000 times more valuable in utilizing AI than understanding the technology. You mentioned a minute ago your kids. Do you feel like your kids are kind of growing up in an AI world? What do you think what do you think about when you think about your kids and the use of this technology?
I think they're definitely growing up in an AI world. I mean, that's what motivated me to start using it at the dinner table was that my kids are coming home talking about how they were using it at school. And not saying, oh, I'm using, ChatGPT like this or Copilot. They use Copilot at school, but saying, oh, I asked Copilot and this is what Copilot told me. And just, they're kids. So it's like the
Yeah.
most random facts, like the most random facts. But the fact that they were using it was like, okay, I need to know what's going on here,
Mm.
and I need to understand this experience and their experience.
Yeah.
But I,
Great.
coming from library world, I think of it with my kids as like the ultimate librarian. You go into a library and you're like, where can I find more information about X, Y, and Z? And now you can do that with AI.
Yeah, perfect. Well, not as a spoiler, but in my presentation, in the practical piece, I'm going to talk about the kind of components, how AI actually works, and how that library sort of analogy fits, but it also doesn't fit in a really important way. And so that'll be kind of a teaser for the next session, talking about how AI actually works a little bit under the hood. So. Great. Thank you very much. So while I ask you a question, Ren, you've got a poll question you're going to throw up from Sarah's talk, right? So okay, well, I'm getting some furrowed brows from Ren, so maybe we'll move on to Matt. And Matt, tell us about your AI journey. You've got an interesting. There we go. Question four. I don't think this is our fourth question we asked, but that's all right. Will AI be an active part of your kids' lives? So I don't know. We've got two clergy on here. Probably have some people without kids. So just sort of extrapolate that in future generations' lives. Will AI be an active part of your kids' lives? Great. So while people are responding to that, Matt, you also have an interesting journey with AI. Tell us about kind of where you started and where you are now.
Absolutely. My journey, whenever you asked us to think about this question that it was going to pop up in our deal today, I thought to myself, when did it actually start? And really for me, I see AI coming back to when I was in the kitchen cooking, my hands were dirty, and I said, "Hey Siri, set a timer for 5 minutes." I don't remember what I was cooking, but it was at that moment I thought, oh, that was really, really cool. And of course, from then on, anytime I need to set a timer, it's always, hey Siri, set a timer for such and such time. Funny story, I actually had to turn off that capability on my Mac computer because as I was going through here yesterday reading a few things, my Hey Siri actually kept popping up in conversation. But from that I kept going and I was tasked with writing a major gift course for Petrus and gosh, there was so much writing and so much brainstorming and trying to organize my thoughts. And I would next thing I knew, I would get stuck here, or I'd get stuck there. And it was either you, Andrew, or Ren who suggested, hey, what if you threw it into ChatGPT just to help organize the structure and the thought process to where it was coherent. And I literally threw it in there, and seconds later, it was better than anything I could have probably come up with myself, and it just kind of blew me away of what this could possibly turn into. And then fast forward a little bit longer, I'm sitting there and working on a case for support for a client, and one of the things in every case for support is a letter from the priest to the people, to his congregation. And the priest usually will write that piece, but in this instance, he just didn't have the time, and it was delaying our case for support. And he said, "Matt, I don't know if you normally do this or not, but I just don't have the time to write this. Can you write it and then give me something, and then I'll edit it and make it sound like me?" And of course, I said I would do it. I didn't want to hold this up any longer, and so I started writing the priest letter. But then I thought, how am I supposed to write a letter as a priest about this? Um, and again, confided with Tara, another Petrus team member, and she said, "Matt, have you ever thought about putting into Chat GPT like this exact same moment that I had with the major gift course, but being a little hard headed, it hadn't caught on just yet." And so I did, and I promise you, whenever it came out, it was a stronger starting point than something that I could have come up with myself. Again, not being at that level, and not being a priest myself. And so that's when little bits and pieces of Chat GPT started coming into my world, and then of course Claude. But what really kind of changed my mind, and probably everybody on this can relate, was when I was working on 1,500 names. We had to turn in for a study. They came to me as, to use me as an example, Matt and Sandy Bond in one column, right? Well, I needed the last name in a column, one person's in a second column, and the second person's name in a third column, separated out. That was going to have 1,500 names, as anybody can know, and you have to delete the and. That's going to take 4 to 6 hours. And Ren, you were mentioning about needless work. This was something that needed to happen, but it was just mind-numbing work. And I thought, from everything that we were doing, I wonder if I could build something using Claude that could sort it out as a workflow, not send it through AI, but it's just as simple. Hey, take the last name, which is here, put it in this column. Take the first name that's here, put it in this column. Second name, put it in this column. And so I did. And it took me 30 to 45 minutes maybe to build it and have it function properly. But as soon as I uploaded the document into that process and I hit go, and 15 seconds later, I had a perfectly segmented document that popped up. My mind was totally blown, totally blown. Not only did it save me hours of work on this one list, it's probably saved me 2 or 3 days worth of work since then, because I've been able to reuse the same thing that I built over and over and over again. And to say that I jumped in uh, feet first, head first, whatever, is probably an understatement into that. I was full speed, pedal to the metal, anything AI. I was 100% sold. I was in, and so for me, that's kind of my journey of what where I went with AI and how it kind of took over my world. To even give me the confidence and know how to learn how to build Pete AI from that. And so that's a kind of the beginning to end of my bookends of my story.
Right. Is there any part of you that's afraid of where AI is going and whether or not we're approaching it in the right way?
Um, I think that to be cautious is always good, especially with new technology. I think we always should be cautious. And pulling up Pope Leo's encyclical, I think that's exactly what he's saying is we have to be good stewards of that. And I know we'll talk more about it here after a while, but no, I'm not nervous necessarily about where it's going. I think there's always going to be bad actors in everything that we do. I mean, look at the internet. There's good parts of the internet, and then there's the dark web. So there's always going to be that piece to it. But honestly, I think the overall human nature is good, and I feel in this instance that we will be we'll go and take it in a good direction, where it'll ultimately be a good thing for us.
Great. So that's a perfect segue into my next question. Okay. So, okay, question, poll. Without a doubt, yes, 68% say yes, AI will be an active part of your kid's life. 26% some, but I can't see how much. 6% maybe a little, and 0% said no, it's a fad. Great. I would agree with that. Okay, so Matt, you set me up with a good segue into our next question. On May 25th, 2026, just a couple of months, month and a half ago, right? Yeah. On the 135th anniversary of Rerum Novarum, Pope Leo XIV released his first papal encyclical, Magnifica Humanitas. So I will start with you, Matt, since you went last. Thanks, Ren, for putting up that question. Have you read Pope Leo's encyclical, Magnifica Humanitas? If you answer yes, we're going to throw you up on all of it. Yes, we're going to throw you up on the panel and ask you some questions as well. But first question for you, Matt. You read the encyclical. I know that because we talked about it on multiple occasions. What was your biggest takeaway from Pope Leo's encyclical?
Yeah, it's my biggest takeaway from his encyclical was not necessarily is AI good or bad, but that if used in a right way, and for the common good is going to be a good thing for our world. And so if you look back into uh, uh, the encyclical at chapter 9, there's a great quote from that I keep coming back to, and and there's a couple pieces. I'll read them to you here. Scientific discoveries are talents entrusted to humanity so that they may bear fruit. And AI is a great technology. Technology has the power to heal, connect, educate, and protect our common home. Therefore, the primary choice is not between yes or no to AI or to technology, but rather between constructing Babel or rebuilding Jerusalem, between a power that claims to dominate the heavens and a people who work together in the presence of God to rebuild the walls of fraternal coexistence. And I think that was my biggest takeaway is how are we going to use it for the common good of all?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you mentioned in that quote the Tower of Babel and the rebuilding of the walls of Jerusalem. I think that analogy has kind of popped up in a lot of people's reporting of what Pope Leo said, and just to kind of frame it for our audience, right? The Tower of Babel was something that was created with everybody's intent in that was to create a common language to glorify themselves on their journey up to the heavens, right? And so the way Pope Leo kind of connects that to the technology of AI is, are we or are people creating AI to create a common language so that we bring glory to ourselves and we can ultimately replace God as the source of all information, right? Contrast that with Nehemiah, right, and the rebuilding of the walls of Jerusalem, right? So they come back. I think King Artaxerxes comes back. The city is destroyed. The walls are destroyed, and Nehemiah says, "King, let me rebuild the walls." And instead of Nehemiah doing kind of the Tower of Babel approach and saying, I can do this, here's my vision, what he did was he farmed out essentially all of the different parts of the wall to different tribes and to different groups who could each individually and collectively rebuild their part the way that they saw it, and ultimately at the end created this the wall of Jerusalem. And so Pope Leo's connection to AI is, instead of creating a tool that replaces God, that built on our own sort of self glory, self aggrandizement, right? Can we as a world, as a people, as a community, come together and use this tool in the way that we can bring glory to God, that we can rebuild the walls of Jerusalem, right? That we can build the kingdom of God collectively. And is that a better and a more proper way? And Pope Leo is very clear. Yes, that's the more proper and the appropriate way, is that this isn't something to replace God with a single language and a single source of information, but it can be a tool to build our work of evangelization, our work of ministry in ways that each of us can bring glory to God. But we all have to be, and my favorite analogy was from in this conclusion in paragraph 236, we all have to be wise architects, right? We all have to be driven by hope for the kingdom of God, and we have to be committed to building the world for the common good. And those two, your point is dead on, right? Pope Leo isn't saying, can we use this? Pope Leo is saying, if we as a people are going to glorify God through this technology, how can we collectively work together? But we all have to be part of it, right? We all have to, later on in paragraph 241, he says we have to be prepared to enter the construction sites of history. I love his like analogies with like, we've got this digital world, and then he's like, nope, you got to be architects, you got to be builders, right? Get in there where it's dirty and work hard. And I think that that's the challenge. Now, that there's a lot of like fear from people that hear that and think, gosh, like Sarah, I don't know technology, right? I read books, I don't, or Ren, I make concrete, I know how to do that, right? But I think that's not what he's saying. He's not saying be technologists. He's saying be open to how this technology can be used for good. So I appreciate you sharing that, Matt. Sarah, what was your sort of biggest takeaway from the encyclical?
Yeah, similar to Matt's, that AI isn't evil or good, but rather it's about how we use it, and that we should be discerning in how we use it, right? Like we should use spiritual discernment in how we conduct ourselves in all things, and that applies to AI as well. And that there's opportunity there for AI to serve the common good, to help serve the common good. So I think there's potential there for goodness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good. Now, you guys have both kind of pointed to how Pope Leo is encouraging us to explore this technology and use it for good. But Ren, your takeaway was in that same vein, but a little bit different. What did you take away from the encyclical?
I mean, the crux of the encyclical, I think everybody was kind of looking for a yes, AI is fine, or a no, AI should never be used, and that really isn't what the encyclical says. I think the paragraph that stands out to me, I'll just read two sentences of the longer paragraph. Paragraph 110, he talks about disarming the technology, and he doesn't mean just militarily, right? And all of chapter 5 talks about the military uses of AI, but just two sentences here. To disarm means discrediting the assumption that technical power automatically confers the right to govern, right? And then to disarm does not mean rejecting technology, but preventing it from dominating humanity. So looking for the right uses of it. And then he kind of goes on, chapter 4 really talks about a lot of things that also apply, if you look backward over the last 20, 25 years, to search engines, to social media. He talks about making sure that the power isn't consolidated in the hands of a few people or a few businesses, making sure that it's not manipulating public opinion, those types of things. And that's all accelerated with AI, but it also applies to those other, especially social media and search as well.
Yeah, and you use a good word there, right? Accelerating. The ability to manipulate stories, the ability to sort of leverage power for bad. That's not a new thing now that that artificial intelligence exists, right? But it does mean that the ability for people to corrupt can be accelerated through the use of this technology. And so your takeaway is yes, that's possible, but we have to be vigilant. Would you agree with that?
Definitely. Yeah, exactly. That feels like the crux of the whole encyclical to me.
Yeah. Great. Let me ask you now a follow-up question. And Ren or Sarah, I'll start with you, right? So, great. So, have people read the encyclical? 36%, some of it, 39%, what I've seen other people say, not at all, love it. And then 4 people have read it completely. Is it interesting, really kind of okay, say funny, but that shows the power for good with AI, right? So I read a lot. I did the math the other day, and I spend about 2 hours a day reading on average, which is kind of blew me away. But I cheat at reading. I have other people read to me. I listen to audiobooks exclusively. I give me a piece of paper and a book, and I'm like I'm up a creek without a paddle. And so I wanted to read the entirety of Magnifica Humanitas. And I was like, I just kept trying. It's like George Costanza when he tries to sit down there and read the book and he keeps getting distracted. That was me. And so I sort of made I pointed this out. I brought this to the attention of Matt and Ren and Sarah. And I was like, man, I really wish there was an audio recording, but there's not. And I don't know, what was it like 4 hours later? Matt emails me a file and was like, "Hey, here's an audio recording of Magnifica Humanitas." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, how'd you find this?" He goes, I made it." And so like just the power of using technology and using AI to help me learn about the proper way to use AI, I think was just like a complete full circle. I love it. And so I thought that was just really helpful. So, okay, next to our next question before I got sidetracked telling dumb stories about myself and my inability to read. I read to my kids a lot. I do that. I've read every Berenstain Bear about 1,000 times at bedtime, if you're counting. But give me anything of substance, and somebody needs to read to me. Question for you, Sarah. Is the Catholic Church ready to embrace AI, and should it?
I think ready or not, we have to embrace it. I mean, imagine if the Catholic Church hadn't embraced the printing press, like where would we be today? Like we are people of the world, the church is of the world, and this is the reality that we live in, that people are using AI. I think specifically for fundraisers, the reality is you are competing for people's dollars, and you bet the for-profit world and other nonprofits are utilizing AI in their fundraising. So there's something I think lost there personally as a Catholic fundraiser to not engage with it at some level.
But shouldn't Catholics be a people set apart, right?
Yeah, I mean, that is true. And I think what sets us apart is our values, not the tools that we use, right? Like I said before, imagine if the Catholic Church hadn't embraced the printing press, where would we be today? Imagine if we hadn't embraced organized education, right? We are of the world, but what sets us apart is our distinct values and our faith and the way that we live out our faith in using those tools.
Hmm. What are some ways that you could see AI being corrupted or using sort of against that goes against those Catholic values?
Yeah, I think there's a few different ways, and I think the encyclical does a good job of really mapping out here are some temptations, right, of how we could use AI in a way that would be immoral or unethical. But I think what that could look like is, being deceitful in about being human, right? Presenting
Hmm.
AI as human. I don't know what, maybe that looks like a chat bot that is pretending to be a priest and it's not there's not a real person behind that, or a chat bot having conversations with a donor and, the donor thinks it's a real person but in reality, they're talking to a chat bot. Or, maybe that looks like outsourcing decisions that we make. So, I guess like spoiler alert, later on, I'll talk about using AI in figuring out, helping discern an ask amount for a donor. But we can't just hand that decision over to AI. We still ultimately we should be making that decision ourselves. It really, I think, a good gut check is, does this treat the donor or parishioner, student, whoever, as more than a data point? Are we keeping the humanity in it?
Yeah, we've been saying it for a couple of days and weeks now, but AI allows you to let the robots do the robot work so the humans can do more human work, right? So exactly is what you're talking about, right? So are there ways that we can utilize this technology to speed up the process in other ways that allow us, but that allow us to continue to keep that relationship as the central point of our work as fundraisers? Yes, absolutely. That's the balance, right? That's where we're at right now, is how do we find that balance?
Definitely.
Yeah. Ren, what about you? What do you think? Is the Catholic Church ready to embrace AI?
So I think just being around the Catholic Twitter sphere, which is always a dangerous thing, or LinkedIn, or just talking to people within the church, the biggest pushback against AI seems to be with using it like a person, right? Of this is our AI priest, or this is my AI counselor, or my AI best friend. Like that, those are the use cases where everybody's like AI is bad in all cases because look at people being using it for this. And I think that's a valid point, and I think that's. I mean, the Pope really lays that out in the encyclical. I think it's paragraph 99, 100, somewhere in there. He talks about using AI in a way that mimics real people, right? And I think we need to, as we talk about using it in fundraising, that's the use case that we want to get away from is using it. We want to use AI to do the robot things like you said, so that we can do the people work, right? The person to person. That's what AI is all about. And so, uh, figuring out the use cases where it is applicable and where it shouldn't be applied is that we're in that phase right now of sorting that out. But I think once we get that sorted out, then it's going to be obvious. Okay, I can definitely use it for these purposes. I definitely cannot use it for these purposes, and that kind of clears it up. Of all right, this is how we're going to use it responsibly.
Yeah, the word that Pope Leo uses in paragraph 100 is vigilance, right? In light of what has been said, we can better understand why AI can be a valuable tool, and at the same time, why it calls for a measured and vigilant approach. So I think that's what you're talking about. And then he talks other times, we can't be the worker, and this is where I love his connection back to Marion of Arm. The worker should not be reduced to sort of a quantity of his efficiency, right? We have to continue to honor the humanity both in our work staff and in our work as fundraisers as the donors as well. And so, Sarah, you're right. You can't just say, how much should I ask this person for? Just like, when you do a well screening, many of us in Catholic fundraising have used well screening tools to kind of look inside people's assets and capacity, and just to help to kind of guide us in what an appropriate ask amount would be, right? But you would never call up somebody and say, "Hey, Ren, my well screen said that I'm supposed to ask you for $34,614. So will that be cash, check, or charge?" Right? Like that's not an appropriate use of that technology. Just the same way that saying, well, the tool is here, so it knows all, it can answer better than I can, so I'm going to trust it implicitly and explicitly. That's not appropriate either, right? Yeah. Matt, how about you? Is the church ready for AI?
I think that question may actually be a little late. I love how Sarah said ready or not, and I wanted to finish it and say here it comes. But really it's already here. You know what I mean? So is the Catholic Church ready to embrace AI? Gosh, that's that. My answer to that is I hope so because it's here. And again, it all comes back to, as we've been talking about, using it in the right way, knowing what's behind it, knowing what's supporting it, and trusting the source that it's coming from. If those scratch the surface of it, we've got to. If we stand at a point and we say, nope, nope, we're not going to bring AI into the church, and of course there are certain areas of the church it does not belong. And I know there was something that came out from the Pope to priests specifically about homilies, not to use AI to write your homilies. 100% believe in that needs to be Holy Spirit inspired, and all that. Even though I'm not, as I said before, I'm not a priest and I don't know how to write nor give a homily like they would. But to give a really great example, my son was in chemistry, and he was struggling with class, and so we had the opportunity to hire a tutor at $45 an hour to tutor him for that. We're not made of money, and so $45 every week, it really started to add up quickly. And so we kind of had to look at each other, my wife and I, and say, okay, can we continue to afford this? And bottom line was, no, we just couldn't afford it. And so I'm not good at chemistry. She's not good at chemistry. I was able to put together a project on Claude that helped him specifically learn on the things that he was missing. So I went on there and I said, hey, this is what he's learning about, and he's struggling with this, and this. And so what it did is it turned it around and it taught him how to do that. And then it gave him examples so that he could practice it. I couldn't do that. And to be honest with you, I couldn't afford to continue paying for that. And so for me, that's an ultimate good behind it, because now it wasn't a financial resource that was limiting his ability to learn. It was uh, kind of even the playing field. And I think we can translate this a lot to how the church can use it in the same way. The church is not made of money. Anybody who says that the Catholic Church is wealthy, they have not been around the Catholic Church for very long to realize that they do struggle. Most churches struggle. Some are doing well, but I wouldn't equate any of them to being wealthy from that. And if we can use it to help equal the playing field, level the playing field in a good, uh, productive, um, uh, following the encyclical, following the words of the Pope way, then it's there. So embracing AI, should the Catholic Church do it? Of course it should do it, but it's here.
Yeah. Interesting. There's a question I saw in the Q&A about, do you trust the AI generated version of Magnifica Humanitas? Is it word for word accurate? Yes, it was. He has a couple of the Matt warned me, said it sounds a little bit robotic, but it's pretty good. But what it was funny is if it was reading, let me just pull it up real quick. If it was reading the chapter, it would say, the pacing was a little bit tricky. I had to get used to it. It would say, which can be very effective, but does not imply inner growth, a valuable tool that requires vigilance. 100. In light of what has been said, we can better understand. So I had to get used to that, but that's a technology thing. The answer to the question was yes. The audio version was totally accurate. So. Ren, in our conversations, you've mentioned something about how AI has kind of brought to light a greater appreciation for humanity. Tell me a little bit about that in the context of the Catholic Church and its embrace of technology.
Yeah, I think that was the initial fears. And if we use AI, that is clear. Like when you look around, many things are AI generated, right? Text, images, video. But I think that has made us all very quickly already appreciate really human things and really value that more so than we did probably before AI was around, right? And so I think that's been a positive, and that's also a way you can kind of stand out within your fundraising going forward is if everybody's using AI and they're not, if they're sloppy with it and everything looks AI generated, but you're handwriting letters, you're making personal phone calls, you're kind of taking the extra step to show that you're a real human communicating with your donors, that's going to be valued and appreciated even more so than it already was. So that's an opportunity there.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. We have the opportunity to stand out, right? And there's another question in the Q&A that says, if AI accelerates the productivity push that's already prevalent, are we able to do more in less time? Are we accidentally dehumanizing workers? What would you say to that, kind of in context of this same question?
Oh, it's in a way that's all relative. That one thing that I've learned working in ministry is that the work is never done, right? There's never a point where like, oh, we have reached all the students on campus and they're all going to mass and they're all right. There's always more work to do. So it does allow us to do more work in the same amount of time. And there's you're never going to hit a point where you're done. So you've always got to have a self-imposed or staff-imposed limit on what is enough, what's the right amount. I mean that's the danger is pushing people too hard of expecting more and more and more. But that is relative. It's kind of we've talked internally about the analogy of back if you were driving a horse and buggy 120 years ago and you got into a car. I mean, the first cars were going 5-10 miles an hour, and that was I remember we had a podcast called Holy Donors. We talked about John Raskob as one of our holy donors. I think it was him who was driving a car and got pulled over for going 20 miles an hour. And he had a bunch of speeding tickets for, 20 miles an hour. If you took somebody from that time, put him in a car going 80 miles an hour right now, that would be like mind blowing and terrifying, right? And the part of the struggle with AI is we're going through that change really fast. There's not a lot of adjustment time. But over time, kind of the everything kind of gets reset into what's relative, right? If you look at the productivity of today's worker with a computer versus with a typewriter years ago versus with just pen and paper years before that, the productivity looks a lot more. We're busier. So there's always a balance there. And there definitely is a danger of going too far with it. But it does free us up to get more work, especially within ministry, if you can do more in the same time, you can reach more people with your ministry without overdoing it and burning out, then it's overall a net good.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I equate the introduction of AI much like the calculator was introduced. What did we figure out about 100 years ago? And the first mathematicians that ever were asked, "Oh, well, do you use a calculator?" They would have said, instantly, "No," and I would never trust it. Right? I would never trust it to give me the answers that I know that I can calculate on my own, given the time and the patience to be able to do that. And yet over time, the adoption of the calculator meant that not only were more people able to do math, but they were the people that knew how to do math could actually use the technology to do even more complicated, more complex, more math that kind of expanded their horizons because of the use of the calculator. But initially, there was a fear of, I don't want to use it. I'm not going to trust it. And I feel like we're in that place now. And again, going back to that point of vigilance, right? We can't just adopt. We can't be, sort of AI or homers or AI, kind of doofuses that are just like, well, whatever it says, I trust it. But given vigilance, given a choice to explore, I think that we can be part of that sort of change process in real time. And Sister Tracy did post, I don't know if everybody can see it, but she said, if anyone wants to hear Magnifica Humanitas read by humans, I actually thought about just reading it myself on the podcast, and then I thought I'd get busted for copyright infringement or something. But there is a audiobook version of the encyclical put out by the Vatican. So I would definitely encourage you guys to let somebody read Magnifica Humanitas to you in human voice. Great. I want to approach this question in a little bit different way, right? So the question is the Catholic Church ready, and should the Catholic Church embrace AI? So what if we reframe the question, though? What if we reframe the question about, are we ready and should we, to what is the risk of failure if we refuse to adopt this new technology, right? So yes, there are risks, right? Donor privacy, honesty, the fear that a machine will hollow out, that work that used to mean something, and I agree, those are totally fair questions. But we have to ask the other one as well. What does it cost to refuse this technology? Because refusal is a choice as well, right? Every hour that a gift officer is spending scrubbing lists like you're talking about, Ren, or drafting routine thank yous from scratch like Sarah was talking about, or Matt was talking about, that's an hour not spent sitting across from a donor or across from a parishioner, building that human to human relationship, right? The fear that AI replaces meaningful work, I think it kind of has the arrow pointing the wrong way, right? The meaningful work is the relationship. It's the visit. It's those conversations. It's that discernment that we go through with our donors that AI can allow us to free up more time for those experiences if we choose to learn this technology and use it in that way. And then, right, the risk is real in terms of reach, right? If our campus, or if our Catholic ministries, right? I've been in fundraising for 20 years. We've been, Petrus is 20 years old. I've been doing this full time for 10 years now. And I've seen more Catholic ministries than I can count in 1,000 lifetimes that have one or zero fundraisers that's expected to raise enough money to fund the ministry in its entirety. And the reality is that refusing a technology that allows us to amplify the abilities of the staff that we have, or the people that we have on our team, the staff, the leaders, the volunteers, to be able to be more successful in reaching money and amplify our mission, that's a moral decision as well, right? So I think that if we reframe the question and what is the risk of failure if we refuse to adopt technology, it becomes a very different look. The privacy, the honesty, those are real questions, right? Governance can manage those, but the Bible did not call the servant who buried his talent prudent and cautious. the Bible called that person slothful. And I think that we need to at least in be open and challenge ourselves to look at the cost to refusing a technology that can potentially advance the work that we are trying to do, which is to build the kingdom of God. And let's close this section with one last question, right? So, so there've been kind of parts of this that we've been saying, this is good, this is right. We need caution, we need prudence here, which I think is all great. I want to ask this question. As you continue to learn more about this technology, as you continue to explore, Matt, as you continue to kind of build with Claude Code, right, and figure out what's possible, exercise that superpower of AI use that you have. What are you most looking forward to as you kind of pull back that curtain and look into the future? And Ren, I'll start with you. What are you most looking forward to?
I think kind of what we've been talking about, just the ability to get rid of some of the more tedious tasks, the behind the scenes tasks, and open us up to more of that human to human interaction. It just makes the whole, I mean, that's the whole point of fundraising is building relationships with your donors. At the end of the day, that's where the money comes from. That's where the ministry growth comes from. And so, being able to set some of those things aside, right? There's I guess an image that comes to mind is I remember when I was working at a campus ministry, we started podcasting our priest homilies, and that was all great. But it's good to get that out there. There was really no benefit to me spending time editing it, right? If I can use an AI editor to just clean up the few kind of quirks within the audio file and put that up. And I say that as somebody who I love editing podcasts. I've edited the Petrus Development Show podcast for the last 197 episodes, the last 8 years, right? So, but if that's a task I can set aside, and then we can use that time to be out meeting the donors, making the big ask, and then making more ministry happen as a result, that's just a net positive to me.
Great. Appreciate that. Matt, what are you most looking forward to as you pull back this curtain?
Jarvis. That's an Iron Man quote. No, no, no. I don't need an engineering assistant by any means to build suits of iron. But similar to what you said, Andrew, similar to what Ren said, what I so look forward to is just the ability to augment a workday. We have stressful days. We have days where there's more things on our plate than we can possibly accomplish in the amount of hours that we were given. And if we can find a way to accomplish some of those items in a quick fashion that doesn't need the human in, and we can focus again on the things that move the needle, focus on the human work, let robots do robot work, let humans do human work. That's what I so look forward to in the future is a some form of a personal assistant to help with those day-to-day things, the things that don't matter. For instance, what's the directions to get to the donor's house? I mean, how much time do we all spend having to look that up? Yes, it's in our pocket. We type it in there. But what if it was already ready to go before we even had to put two thoughts to it? Or, what if it took notes from our last meeting and was able to pop it up and we could see that before we walk into that next meeting without having to do that work? That's not anything that takes intelligence to really put together, and it doesn't need a human to do it necessarily. It's just copy and paste word for word what it is and send it over. And so done in the appropriate way, gosh, that would be a world that I would so look forward to.
We mentioned a couple times this hackathon that we did, and I just wanted to do a hackathon because I thought, well, we get to stay up all night, drink Mountain Dew, and eat pizza, right? That was my view of a hackathon, so I thought, let's do it. But we really went into that, Matt, Ren, myself, and Josh, with kind of like all right, well, we'll see what we can do in 3 days. And by the end of it, by you guys working around with N8N at the time and Lovable and some of these other tools, and I don't even think you were using Claude Code at the time, and we had a list of agents, and it was like, all right, let's just each try to tackle one of these agents. Well, not myself. Again, I was the the brains behind the operation. I just sort of stood there and ordered more pizza when it ran out. But you guys did a great job of sort of taking these tasks that were real pain points in the life of a fundraiser, right? Like everything on that task was, hey, here's something that stumbles or that trips me up or takes time. And you guys were able to kind of figure out the pathway to the point where at the end we had somebody come in and wasn't even part of the hackathon, but they said, you know what, if you guys are doing this, can you design this for me? And then I had to go somewhere, and 2 hours later I came back and Josh was like, hey, I did it. It was great. And here it works. And, just like like the superpower that comes with the ability to use these tools to accomplish things and to solve problems that you didn't even think were solvable is a real superpower. And so, Sarah, have I asked you what you were most looking forward to?
Not yet, but I'll be brief because I know we're up against time. But I know there's so much kind of fear talk of we're going to lose our humanity with AI. And I am always the optimist. And I just think, I don't know, I think high enough about our humanity that um, we, like Rin was saying, more and more people want that human lived experience. It's almost like because of AI, we've swung even further. I mean, I see that with my kids. Like they are quick to not want to be on the phone and on their screens, and they want to be outside and they want to be with their friends. I mean, it's like it's not cool to be on your phone all the time. And I know my kids are younger, but I guess I look forward to seeing how we as a people lean further into having lived experiences with each other. And I think we will, I think that will be a really beautiful moment for all of us. And I also think, like everyone else said, I'm looking forward to the creativity that comes out of everyone of how we can use AI in a meaningful way that brings dignity back into our work. I think it's fair to say that some of these tasks and roles have lost their dignity. I mean, is it dignifying to sit and do data entry all day long? So I think I'm looking forward to that creativity that comes out of this.
Great. I appreciate that, Sarah. And I'll close this. There's a great book, Co-Intelligence by Ethan Mollick. I would definitely, he's all over, kind of like Ali Miller is. Ethan Mollick is on social a lot. Really great way of thinking about these things. But in his book Co-Intelligence, he talks about kind of how the use of AI can be employed as a cyborg, right? So we're the human, but can we sort of supplement different parts of our work with technology, and but that doesn't remove our humanity. And so the interesting thing about that though is right now in 2026 we're in this world where many people are walking around as secret cyborgs, right? So it's like, when they did this study and they interviewed people at work, and the question was, do you use AI professionally in your work, even when, and the questions were like, even when your office doesn't technically allow it or whatever, or when they don't want you to know, and the answer was overwhelmingly, if my office doesn't allow me to use AI, then I'm using it on my personal device, and then I'm copying those questions into my those answers into my work. And so I think right now, it's like that Spider-Man meme, where everybody's standing, or there's three Spider-Man standing around pointing at each other and like, no, you're using AI. No, you're using AI. No, it's like that. We're in this space right now where the the values and the efficiencies and effectiveness that can be applied to our work, whatever that work is. Right now, we're talking about Catholic fundraising. By the use of technology is real, and it's becoming more and more evident. But there has to be a process of normalizing how we talk about the use of this technology. And so I think that's where we are right now. So I'm thrilled that you're with us here on this summit, in part because it allows us to have more of these conversations. MB Florenzo just says, I'm hearing that if we're wise, we can use AI to be more human with our donors, help us write personal, not mass emails, but more of them. I'd argue that the handwritten note is more important now, even if you use AI to get script or list, keeping the human touch, just using the technology to allow more. Yes, absolutely. 100% agree with that. So let me, we're going to go into our break right now. But before we go into our break, I want to take a quick second and introduce you to a new member of our team that I have not introduced yet. So about the time that I finished reading The Empire of AI, I decided that we can't just sit by and wait for Google or Amazon to develop AI for Catholic fundraisers, right? Slap a cross sticker on it and sell it back to us. We need to be part of that process as much as anyone. And so I mentioned already, I don't have a background in software development, but our team collectively, we have decades of fundraising experience. We all love the Catholic Church, and we are willing to learn. So today, I want to introduce you to Pete. Pete is the first and only AI co-pilot built specifically for Catholic fundraising. Pete is trained on the spiritual teachings of the Church and Henry Nouwen, alongside 20 years of Petrus's fundraising experience. I'm not going to lie, we think Pete is pretty awesome, but we're only just getting started developing what Pete will one day be capable of. So when we come back from break, we'll be talking about how AI can be used for fundraising. Sarah, Ren, Matt have some amazing examples and for how to use this. And they'll be showing you live, or they'll be showing you prompts that they've used and real responses. And they've run all of those prompts in Pete, in our AI Catholic Copilot, but they don't have to be. So this isn't a sales pitch for Pete. Tomorrow, if you want to jump on a live demo, we'll have information about that. But this is a conversation today about the power of AI to enhance our capabilities as fundraisers while never relinquishing the humanity that we bring to this work. So again, I want to say that again. Enhance our capability as fundraisers while never relinquishing the humanity that we bring to this work, right? We want to let the robots do robot work so the humans can do more human work. And just like Pope Leo said in his encyclical and Antiqua et Nova said before that, humanity must remain at the center of any technology we use. And we believe that we've developed a tool that will allow us to do that. And you'll hear more about Pete down later on in the presentation. Thanks for joining us for this first panel discussion, and come on back to learn more about practical application of AI for fundraising. Thanks.